Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Our event is entitled The B2B Customer Journey from Content to Revenue by Kapost and Hive9. We'll hear from Kapost, makers of the leading content marketing platform for B2B, as well as Hive9, the marketing performance management company. If you have a question, feel free to type it in the Q&A panel and we'll address it at the end of the broadcast. My name is Patrick Kilgore, and I'm the Director of Marketing for Hive9. I run day-to-day marketing operations for our organization, and I do my best to view all campaigns and tactics through an ROI lens to ensure that data-driven marketing is more than just conjecture. In addition, I have the chance to connect with our customers and prospects in the field to share marketing performance goals and challenges. I've been in the ops trenches, and I know how difficult data challenges across tools can be. I'm joined today by Ann Murphy, the Director of Content Marketing for Kapost. Ann is responsible for all content marketing programs and assets at Kapost. As a multi-year veteran of the organization, she ensures content is running at peak to provide a class-leading experience that drives revenue. Ann will be speaking first today to cover the content challenges you're all too familiar with. All right, Ann, take it away.
Thanks, Patrick, and thanks everyone for joining us here today. I'm thrilled to be speaking with you. We have a great agenda. So first we'll be covering, as Patrick mentioned, content, why it matters, how to target it effectively, and build out your calendar and your strategy around that to really complete your buyer's journey and complete the customer journey that Patrick will then get into later on. So we'll start off by talking about customer experience. So there are certain trends in modern marketing that just can't be ignored, and many of them fit into the conversation we're having today around content and revenue. And one of these topics is customer experience. It's something that's become increasingly important and also increasingly owned by marketing. And a big part of this has to do with the fact that marketing now owns a significant portion of the buyer's journey and the customer's journey. This is something you've probably heard about from CEB, Serious Decisions, all of those analyst reports that find that the customer journey is really moving more towards digital. And 57%, some people even say 90%, of the customer journey actually happens before someone even talks to sales. And so from that, and then also this element of marketing continually owning all of these different channels, tools, technologies, and the message that goes through each of them has made it so many marketers see their responsibility as owning the customer experience and the customer journey. And so why is this a priority? It's because it actually has an impact on revenue. So by being able to deliver an effective customer experience and the power to deliver a consistent message while still targeting that message to your buyer at every stage of the journey, B2B organizations can deliver the revenue and attribute it to marketing and the content that's creating that buyer's journey. And content is really core to the buyer's journey, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit and about building out this consistent customer experience. But it's not always easy to really make all of these pieces fit together. So in a recent study that we did at Kapost, we found that only 12% of B2B marketers rate themselves as very effective at delivering a consistent customer experience. Now, that's not too surprising, considering all of these different tools, teams, channels that you really have to coordinate to deliver an effective and consistent message across all of them, and to really build this buyer's journey in a way that makes sense. And so there are, though, some key factors that go into creating this customer journey and doing a successful job of building it out. And one of those things is understanding content and its place in the buyer journey. So how are marketers delivering this consistent, effective customer journey? So as Laura Ramos says from Forrester, this is a great report. If you have access to it, I highly recommend reading it. Two of the things that she focuses on about doing this well and delivering a customer journey that actually drives revenue, the first piece is ensuring that these digital and physical experiences are consistent and reinforcing. And a big part of that is alignment and planning and making sure that all of these teams are on the same page from the start as you're building out initiatives and campaigns, and making sure that the messaging across all of them is consistent to make sure that that buyer's journey is delivering the same message across all of these different channels. And then the second is to invest in relevant content and repurpose it for physical or digital use. And what I see so important there is the relevant piece, and also that content is a big factor in every single step of this buyer's journey. And so today we'll talk about both of these pieces. And the first part I'm going to get into is planning your content calendar. And as I mentioned, so a big piece of this is alignment and planning, and making sure that all of these teams, tools, and channels are aligned from the get-go. And so with that, this is a picture of Compose, but we'll also talk about how you can do this generally for your organization with or without a tool. So a lot of people use spreadsheets, a lot of people use Excel to manage this process. And right now we're going to talk about the actionable ways that and the steps that you need to take to make sure that your content calendar is effective and aligning all of these different teams so that you can deliver this message across the different channels and tools, and then ultimately drive revenue for your organization. So why should you use a shared calendar? Again, alignment of teams and timelines, and making sure that you're delivering this timely, relevant content across every single channel. And then it also gives visibility into upcoming plans and execution. And a big part of this is making sure that everyone is just on the same page. Because without that, you really won't be able to effectively deliver the information that you're trying to deliver to your customers, to your buyers, as they move from stage to stage in the buying journey. And also, this is important because it actually is in support of what good marketers are doing, what the most effective marketers are doing. So for this survey in particular, this is the same survey that I referenced before, we found that 92% of top performing marketers have a shared editorial calendar for planning marketing initiatives, compared to only 11% of respondents who are not at all effective. And the way we rated effective here is people that said that they were effective at delivering customer experience. And so this is directly tied to customer experience. And being able to have this shared editorial calendar, going back to the goals that were referenced on the last slide, really helps people get on the same page and then execute effectively and efficiently. So we broke this down into two phases of how to really build out your effective calendar. So the first part is really focused around, the first phase here is really focused around getting people on the same page, so alignment and buy-in. And the first part is bringing all of these key stakeholders within your organization together and aligning on key deadlines for major initiatives and milestones. So the way you can think about this is, if there's a big initiative that your company is working towards and you know that those are major goals that are part of your marketing organization and your broader organization, the key stakeholders in the leadership need to be able to understand what it is that the levers that are being pulled in all of these different teams to support those goals. So by being able to get on those same pages, that same page, and figuring out what are these major initiatives that we're pushing towards, that makes it much easier for all of these teams across the board to be aligned on what their plans are and the specific pieces that they're going to be doing to contribute to that bigger goal. And so a big part of bringing all these people together is also establishing, okay, these are the things that we're going after, and now what are the milestones we need to hit to get there? So an example is on the left there, that picture. This is something that we've seen with some of our customers specifically. This is kind of how they think of milestones for initiatives that they're running. They have the initial review of a campaign, then legal review, final review, and a launch. Now those are the pieces that need to get hit, the deadlines that across teams, everyone's aligned to. And by establishing those, you can then go back to your individual teams and say, this is now what we need to do specifically on our team, the smaller tasks that build up and roll up to these bigger milestone dates. And by making sure that everyone's on the same page about these milestones for initiatives, you can make sure that you're doing your part of the puzzle while everyone else is as well, and making sure that you hit these timelines for campaigns and shared calendars that matter. The second part that really requires kind of the bigger group to be accountable to and agree upon are these metadata fields to prioritize. So while you're building out these calendars, a big piece of it is what do you need to know from the calendar? What is it specifically that you want to be able to track here? So for some people, it's personas and buying stages. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later and how that is key in really creating this relevant, powerful content. But it might also be something like a content type. Is that what really matters for you to track? Is it color-coded by a specific initiative and campaign? Do you really need to know who's writing these pieces, who's responsible or the project owner on all of these pieces of a campaign? Figure out what you really want to see on your calendar so that it's useful for all of the teams that are using it, and define those things up front so you can build those into your process as you move forward. And so another few examples of something like that, again, like I mentioned, it could be a vertical that you're focusing on. So that's kind of that image here on the bottom right, where these are the specific verticals that you're trying to go after. So all of these things can just make it easier and actually build a calendar that people use and find important. So phase 2 of building out this effective calendar is actually more on the execution side and the actual creation of this calendar. So once you know what the initiatives are, what your milestones are moving forward, the next part is to actually say, okay, now what content and deliverables do we have to support these upcoming initiatives? So this is where the teams your team goes into their own spot and say, okay, from a higher level, we know this is what we need to do. Now what are the specific pieces that we need to make sure that that happens? And this can be specific tasks. For example, if you're writing a blog post or an ebook, there are a lot of small tasks that go into that. You have to interview people, interview influencers, interview customers, make sure the copy is completed, make sure there's a copy editor on that, making sure that you've got your strategy built out around social before you even execute on that. So all of those pieces need to come together at a lower level and figure out what is it that actually needs to get done. And so once you actually map those out and say, okay, these are all of the pieces of content we need, these are all of the deliverables we have at a smaller scale that will then roll up to these bigger milestones, then you really are empowering your actual contributors as well as the people from a higher level. And so that's when this next part comes in, establishing the altitudes of visibility. And this is something that we see a lot with our customers specifically. So what's really important is once you have these people that have already prioritized, this leadership team that's saying this is what really matters, these are the milestones we need to go after, they want to understand what's actually being done on a team level to execute up to those initiatives. And so, but they don't necessarily need to know that the copy editing is due on January the 8th. They want to see, are we on track? And what are the overall initiatives that all these teams are doing to boil up to this bigger goal? And so by being able to establish that and say, on the calendar, this is a calendar that shows the overarching pieces of this, of these campaigns and what's going on to support them. And you can see that kind of on the right, this initiative. It shows all of the pieces of content, yes, but it doesn't get into the nitty-gritty details of what are all of the due dates around that content. But when you dig into that, the contributors have visibility and accountability into every single task that they have to accomplish in order to successfully build up to this bigger initiative. So establishing those altitudes of visibility is another huge step in making sure that everybody has what they need from a calendar. And then the last part of this is to socialize the calendar. So if you put all of this effort into making sure that people are on the same page and aligned to specific dates, timelines, and milestones, the next step is to make sure that they have access to that information and that also they understand how to use it effectively and understand the best ways to use it and get the information they need from it. So on that point, the next part of this is identifying content gaps. And this really speaks to the relevance piece of what's important in content. So this is another example from Compose, but again, you can do this with or without a tool. But this shows kind of what the gaps are and how many pieces of content we have to support our specific buying stages and the specific personas that you're going after. So only 23% of B2B marketers claim to have a customer-centric versus a channel or product-centric organizational structure. And in today's modern marketing world, we know that it's led by the customer. The buyer's journey is led by the buyer. And Patrick will get more into that later as well. And this is increasingly important to really deliver content and messaging that speaks to the buyer instead of speaking to your product. You need to be able to relate to them and build a journey around the topics that interest them and that they really truly care about. This is what the entire goal is at the organization that I'm at. This is what my entire career is around, is making sure that the content that we're creating is targeted specifically to the buyer's needs. But this is also a huge opportunity that only 23% of B2B marketers are doing this and don't have a strategy in place for actually delivering buyer-centric content. Because it means that you, as a marketer, can be a part of that 23% that have a customer-centric focus. And so here's how you can do that, and this is the way that we've done it here at our organization as well. So it's crucial to be able to see the gaps in your content strategy so you can actually fill them. So the big first step here, and this is a big step, I don't want to minimize it by just having it as one bullet point, but it's to start with a content audit. And this is to really understand, these are all of the pieces of content that we already have. This is what we are already creating, some of which is probably useless at this point, and but it's still out there representing your brand in a way that you're not pleased with. And it actually isn't delivering any results for the customer journey that you're trying to build. And so by understanding what content you already have, you'll be able to move forward with a strategy that builds this consistency across the customer journey. The next is to leverage internal stakeholders. And this is a big piece that really matters at any organization. You have a lot of subject matter experts across your organization, whether big or small. Your salespeople are talking to prospects all day. They understand what they're seeing and why they're interested in this product, the challenges that are really being solved by it. Listen to your salespeople and what topics they're hearing come up over and over again and the types of content that would really support a customer journey that ties directly to your product. The same on the customer success side or account side. They are interacting with your customers every single day and hear the benefits as well as where there's still areas that they really struggle with to either socialize why your product matters within their organization or areas that they just still haven't figured out how to solve. That's all great fodder for buyer-centric content that can support a customer journey that eventually ties to your product and delivers revenue. The next step is to review your personas. So if you don't have personas built out, it's an incredibly valuable exercise to understand who it is you're targeting and what it is that they care about. And this is crucial to being able to understand the pain points that each of these personas are going for, and then deliver more relevant, targeted content to them and build that into your strategy. So the next step of this, and once you review your personas, you'll be able to see where do we have content that will already map to what their pain points are and what they need to learn about or want to learn about. And then you can feed that into a customer journey specifically for that persona. Again, and Patrick will show you how you can do that. And then mapping content to strategic fields is the next part. So you'll recognize the same screenshot on the right that we had earlier, and that's because the strategic fields that you decide on to map your content to during a content audit and what you want to continually tag your content with are the same fields that should matter to your higher level leadership, that should matter to all of the teams that are aligned around these topics. Because as you're building out this strategy, you want to make sure that you're on the same page about what the priorities for your content and your initiatives are. Is it to target these specific people and build it out for these specific buying stages or verticals? By understanding that, you're going to be able to create more effective content that your entire organization can use. So once you've done all of that pre-rec work, the next part is to actually get into the content. So the next part is to identify the gaps. So you go through all of the content pieces that you have in your content audit and say, okay, so now that I've tagged all of these relevant pieces of content with the relevant fields, where am I missing things? So this is something you can see, again, that same screenshot at the bottom left corner. This is how we do it in our system, where we can see, okay, we really don't have enough content for this persona at the purchase stage. So that's an area where we need to build out more. And similar, you can, again, a lot of people do this in a spreadsheet. It's possible to say, sort by persona, sort by buying stage, and be able to roll it up that way and say, what are we doing? Where don't we have content that really serves the buyer at this journey? And once you identify those gaps, dig into the data. This is to say, for the personas that we are effectively targeting, what content is resonating? What lessons can we take to build out our content moving forward? For the content that we have built out, what has actually driven success in the buyer's journey so we can replicate that and repurpose that content again? Which brings me to the next point, repurposing current content for quick wins. And this is a key part also for these quick wins. So when you're building out this strategy, it's really key to say, okay, I'm about to invest a lot of time into building out content for the buyer's journey. And I know that this is a valuable, important piece of my strategy, but how do I make sure that other people see the value of it too? You don't necessarily want to be creating all new content because you have a treasure trove of content. There's some amazing stat that I think it's 60% of content in an organization goes unused. There is so much that's already been created. Some of it sure isn't relevant, but some of it is just sitting there waiting to be actually socialized and discovered. And so by using that content that's still relevant and valuable and plugging it into these buyers' journeys in the relevant channels, tools, and repurposing it for other teams as well, you'll be able to see these quick wins for how does consistent, relevant content actually drive results in revenue. And then the last part, once you have these quick wins and you have your first campaign figured out around a consistent customer experience, then you can add the missing content to your content calendar and say, okay, what did we see work? What are we still missing, and where do we really need to ramp up our content creation? And then add that into your upcoming initiatives and onto your content calendar. So hopefully that was helpful in terms of understanding how to plan and align your calendar to specific buying stages and personas. And now Patrick will get into how to actually do this for a customer journey.
Thanks so much, Anne. Let me go ahead and change the controls over to myself. Okay, can you see my screen, Anne?
I can.
Okay, fantastic. So, as Anne mentioned, content is such a huge part of our success as marketers. And those are great recommendations for how to better plan and release content to move the needle. I'm going to build on that today and cover the customer journey. And I'll begin with a quote from Serious Decisions, which I like, that states, "The top 3 requirements for being successful in a new market are sales enablement, product innovation, and understanding the buyer's journey." For many marketers, the first 2 are probably familiar territory, but I want to dig into that last piece of the puzzle. To encapsulate today's talk, I thought I would summarize one of the drivers behind our customer journey mapping. Our belief at Hive9 is that if we can see what content is driving revenue, and we can map the customer journey to drive revenue, and that's, Anne showed you the first part, and I'll show you in a quick demo momentarily how we can do that, then I believe that we can also serve up the next best message to produce even greater returns for marketing organizations. So I thought I'd begin on a light note with an important message about customer journey mapping, and that is, don't stop believing. In years past, journey maps were seldom more than the creation of a consultant or an agency partner to show what they believed was the idyllic customer journey. Often this was based on a flow that we wanted our prospective customers to have, or what we believe they should have, such as coming to our website first, then downloading a white paper, attending a webinar, and engaging with a sales call. We thought we might try to build rules to force that experience to come into fruition. And this whole approach, that may have been useful for a time, but wouldn't it be even more impactful if that journey was based on real data and the real combination of the content and activity experienced by a prospect? Well, I'm here to tell you that in 2016, journey mapping is a reality. So here's a great example of why we need to understand the customer experience. We worked with Tom Fishburne at the Marketunist to visualize a scenario that's all too familiar for marketers. Different silos of your organization or different groups going rogue and sending uncoordinated messages to the same set of prospects. We see one coworker in panel A telling the other, it turns out our marketing teams have been sending promos to the same customers. Rather than the negative reaction that we should see, his statement is met with a glass half full reply from his coworker. I bet that drives a huge response rate. And the reality is, these two just don't have a clue. Well, these marketers think they're doing a great job and are reinforcing one another's messaging. We see that in panel B. Our prospect is at his wit's end. He's seen too many pieces of messages, too many pieces of content in the wrong order, and his solution is to make it all stop. And unfortunately, in some cases, the damage done here can't be repaired. Best case scenario, our prospect opts out of our messages. Worst case, we leave a lasting negative impression. That's why at Hive9, we strive to gain better visibility into what's truly occurring. So why Hive9, you might ask? As performance software specialists, we talk with B2B organizations for a variety of reasons. These can range from marketing measurement and the aggregation of data silos to deploying accurate revenue attribution. We also provide budgeting visibility so marketers can see expenses in real time and compare allocated amounts versus actuals. We integrate marketing plans to ensure the connection between campaigns and programs and revenue impact. But the last bullet is a perfect fit for today's topic: how we approach challenges of CX or customer experience. I'll show you under the hood of our touchpoint analytics, automated customer journey mapping, and next best offer intelligence. Now, we all know that marketing and sales alignment is key, but at Hive9, we try to also focus on marketing and customer success alignment and the alignment of marketing and the customer experience. To approach this, we cover a number of topics, including waterfall, budgeting, revenue attribution, and more through our planning and measurement solutions. To bring it all to life, though, we've also released a new method to visualize this engagement through a module we call Optimize. Like Plan and Measure, we connect to a myriad of nebulous data sources like marketing automation tools, project management suites, CRM systems, social listening tools, etc., to show the customer journey by each touch point through purchase and beyond to gauge advocacy. Here's a quote from Jerry Racky of Demand Metric that explains the notion a little better than I can. He believes that marketing and the customer experience continue to drift closer to one another, so that the alignment between marketing and customer experience has become just as important as the alignment between marketing and sales. A clear understanding of the customer's journey is now marketing performance management imperative. No longer is this just a nice-to-have element to your programs. As marketers, we can't afford to not track and improve our customer experience. So what is it that journey maps can tell us? For starters, they show how my customers and prospects interact with my brand. They show how a journey can vary by filters such as product, industry, geography, or persona. We can see what content is most effective, as well as what channel or delivery mechanism sees the best results. From there, we'll be able to determine how we can take the insights gained from Hive9 and put them into practice, and how to ultimately move more prospects to a path that results in improvement to my organization's bottom line. So to summarize, I'll be able to paint a realistic picture of the actual touches from marketing and sales along my buyer's journey and customer lifecycle. I'll be able to compare one journey against another and filter by any number of customizable fields: region, industry, product, persona. This will show me how my journeys vary across scenario and how I can adapt. Lastly, I'll be able to see what's working and drill down into campaigns to see which specific assets and sequences are most impactful. For instance, here's a glimpse into my most revenue-influencing journey across all of my marketing channels in Hive9 for the past month. As you can see here, I had to zoom out a few clicks. There's quite a bit of information to try to digest at a 20,000-foot view. Because we've connected Hive9 to this organization's marketing automation platform, such as an Oracle or a Marketo, we're able to pull in all of the tagged activities and content prospects are engaging with. We also have natively integrated their CRM system, in this case Salesforce.com, to pull all the information on closed-won deals. You'll see the waterfall stages this organization is utilizing atop the page, from inquiry to qualification, telesales to sales, and closed deals for that same period, April to May. The yellow line you're seeing shows our critical path and how many individuals in each stage, individuals are in each stage at any given time. Of the raw inquiries displayed here, we can see that about 850 of our 4,200 total individuals are on the highest revenue influencing path. And what you'll see visually here is that the larger the touches equal the greater number of individuals in that stage. And that's how you're seeing them clustered there by asset. Now, if I go to apply a filter, for example, only to software products, we see our path instantly changes. We're still looking from April to May, but now we've got a completely new visual. Now we can see 150 of our 813 inquiries, so the earliest stage of our waterfall, are on the path to revenue from the chute. To gain additional insights, it really helps to filter our maps to be as specific as possible, thus allowing us to drill into the journey we want to see for any particular subset. So we're getting closer here to being able to derive meaning. Now, if we apply one more parameter, such as a filter for buyer persona, we see a third, further distilled journey emerge. Now we're seeing our technical buyer persona across software products. These are all elements we know as we've tagged and organized them in our other applications. As was the case before, we can see the journey that leads to the most revenue for this subset. It's all still for that same period. My goal now is to try to interpret this data to determine how I can bring the individuals that are on that tangential journey, so those other gray paths, other pieces of content, onto my critical highest revenue path. For example, our waterfall data shows that 13 of our 16 SQLs, or sales qualified leads according to these definitions, are on the path to close one business. At this stage, we see that our prospects are either receiving our case study, which is ideal, or being called by sales, which has less impact. Now, that sales call will be key, but not before we've served up that customer vignette. Now, more specifically, if I click on the case study to drill in, and I've zoomed here to make it a little easier to read, we can drill down and see into our content cluster and see the specific content our prospects are engaged with. So to drive additional revenue, I'll want to create a scenario whereby my SQLs receive one of the three customer case studies here, either a testimonial for mid-market prospects, SMBs, or enterprise buyers, which, if we apply a solution filter from the left-hand side because of our definitions, we'll know which is which. And then after that point, we'll have that final sales touch and close the deal. Now, if I jump over to the rule area in Optimize, you can see that there was already one rule in place. But highlighted here in blue, I can add a new rule on the fly, which is to offer that case study to our technical software buyer in the SQL stage of our waterfall. So I can do exactly what we were hoping to achieve, to bring that user onto our revenue-centric path. We call this functionality at Hive9 next best message. And essentially, we're determining what they should receive as the very next thing and adapting our typical nurture programs to adjust for these scenarios. Because we have the ability to bidirectionally sync to our marketing automation tool, we can push back to our map instance to ensure that this result is carried out. We may even decide to reorient our nurture programs to reflect the insights that we've gained on what's actually occurring. Potentially we were spot on regarding our assumptions we made about our audience, or perhaps not. At the top of the page, you'll see a link for 85 tagged assets. Many organizations tag their content within their marketing automation tool, and if that's flushed out at your organization, you could easily pull that information into Hive9 Optimize directly. But in addition, I can also look at how my content is performing within Hive9. So here's an overlay view that I pulled from another screen that shows how I can drill down into my content that is most popular and compare which of my content pieces is resulting in the most revenue. As you can see here on the left and the right, the assets that have the highest number of touches, there's a general correlation to the assets that drive the most revenue, but it's not one for one. And as a marketer, truth be told, I'm far more interested in the assets that drive revenue than just the assets that may be most popular. Another compelling scenario would be to tether Hive9 to a great content tool like Ann showed you with Compost. After integrating all of your Compost tagged and organized content, you could drill down to see all of those assets directly in Hive9 like I'm showing here. There really aren't limitations if we can connect and get to that data. So with this setup, we now see 85 assets are the total number of matches to our filters from our Compost library, for example. That could be connected to show natively within Hive9 where your content is. And so obviously that's going to look a little something like this. It's got information from your content library, imported and organized, ready to be visualized by various filters, which are completely customizable by you. Our demo instance here uses asset type, audience, lifecycle stage, and so on and so forth, but this could contain vertical or any parameter you wish to organize your data. As Anne showed via Compost, we can determine what content is driving the most revenue, and she did that. In turn, we can use a solution like Hive9 to map that customer journey and get prospects onto a revenue influencing path. So in conclusion, customer journey mapping is no longer a shining object on the horizon, but a 2016 reality. Now, before we dig into the Q&A, I just want to say a quick thanks to Anne for joining me today, and as well as thanking each and every one of you for your time and attention. If you'd like to learn more about Compost's B2B marketing solution, you can reach out to them at marketing@compost.com or visit them at www.compost.com. If you'd like to continue the conversation with Hive9, you can email us at marketing@hive9.com, and we'll get in touch as soon as possible. We're going to go ahead and make a recorded version of today's webinar available after today's event, and we'll email that out to all attendees. So on that note, let's jump into a little bit of Q&A. And feel free to use the question panel if there's something you'd like to ask. Okay, this looks like a good one for Anne. And this first question asks, how should I get started with Compost? Can I use my existing content to see what's performing best?
Thanks, Patrick. So in terms of using your current content to see what's performing best, absolutely. That's one of the best ways to really understand how you should move forward in your strategy and building out content that's targeted and mapped to your buyer's journey. And so a way that you can do this is, of course, getting your content into Compost, and that's a great first step for using Compost. And what a lot of our customers will do is pull in their content for that content audit process and say, this is how we want to, again, those fields to prioritize and tag content, and say, this is what matters to us as we're building out our customer journeys. These are the topics we really want to hit. These are the buying stages we want to hit, the personas we want to hit. And by tagging all of their content with that, they can also see what has performed in the past and what continues to perform moving forward or not. And so the things that you might have a hypothesis about as being really powerful content, it might really fall flat for your audience, and you'd be able to see that. And then moving forward, don't replicate those same mistakes. And then on the flip side, being able to see, for example, oh wow, these blog posts are really performing well. What is it that they have in common? Oh, they all have images. They all have numbers in the title. That's a very high level, top of funnel example. But again, those are the kind of insights you'd be able to surface. Or later down in the funnel, what is actually getting people from, say, MQL to SAL or SAL to closed won opportunity, and looking at content and saying, wow, it turns out case studies are really powerful at that phase of the funnel. So I want to be delivering more of those types of case studies to our buyers during that phase, because we know that it impacts the buyer's journey more effectively and drives more revenue. So basically, how to get started with Compost? Well, first, let us know that you're interested in that. And then second, getting content inside of Compost. And even if you don't use Compost, the same rules apply. Content audit, seeing what has performed in the past, and then building that data or taking that data and using that to build your strategy moving forward. So hopefully that answered your question. And yeah, if there are any more, please ask away.
Yeah, and there's actually another one here that I think would be great for you, where somebody typed, which functions typically provide input to the calendar when you're building your content calendar?
That's a great question. And so it really depends also on the size of your organization. But in terms of the functions, I'd say we'll start with what it might look like at a smaller team. So anybody who really owns the delivery of content or has access to the data around what content is performing and messaging is performing. So say your digital marketers, your content marketers, sales, customer success. Those people are really crucial in terms of understanding what content you could be producing and adding that to your calendar. So for example, and actually at a bigger organization as well, all of the different marketing functions, so stakeholders from product marketing, demand gen, digital, content, Marcom, Though getting those stakeholders in a room is critical to understanding what initiatives you're running, and then beyond that, what content you're going to be creating to support those initiatives. And a way that we do that is by having a board. So it could be what you call like a marketing leadership board, or if you want it to be specifically about content, a content board. We've seen both. And by getting those people in a room, you get to source all of the ideas in one place and make sure that people feel heard about the topics that really need covering or the things that they're seeing in the market that you might not have access to, including that's data-driven insights as well, what they're seeing perform at all of the different channels that they own. And you can think of sales as a channel, you can think of marketing automation as a channel, social, all of those pieces, and getting those key stakeholders in a room and saying, what is it that you see and what is it that you need to be created or that would be useful and valuable for your channels moving forward, and then consolidating those into themes and building those into the initiatives that you have moving forward. So I know that was kind of a long-winded answer, but basically the functions are really depending on your organization and people that you think have access to the buyer, have access to the customer, and having stakeholders from those functions speak to what content should be created.
No, that's great, Anne. Let's do one more, and this one is a little more Hive9 centric, so I'll take it, where they ask, what revenue attribution model does Hive9 support? My organization uses Last Touch. And the answer to that is we support each revenue attribution model. So we have current support for all 8 attribution models, so be it first touch, last touch, time decay, whatever methodology your organization is using, we can honor that and we'll bring that into Hive9. So a lot of getting started with Hive9 is looking at the definitions around what your organization is doing, how you're looking to model this data, and we'll take it from there. In addition, we have our own sort of secret sauce, if you will, a unique statistically inferred attribution model, which we've built that effectively weights all of the touches relative to close-won deals using a particular algorithm that we've designed in-house. So there are a lot of different ways that you can approach this, and we've even had clients say, I want to look at all of the models with my data, and I want to see what's the most effective thing for me, and sort of what is the subtle variances and what's the minutia between each. So really, we can support anything that you want to do. I think something like last touch, first touch is very common where most organizations are currently. But the more we can do to be more specific and apply credit where credit's due, the better off we'll be in the end. So with that, I think we'll wrap up. Thanks again to everybody for attending today. Thanks again to Anne for speaking with me from Kapost. And we look forward to hearing from you guys and continuing the conversation.